Well, hello, this is Curt Pringle, and welcome to the 35th episode of Talking Issues podcast we do regularly in hopes of sharing, perspective on different public policy issues in California. And today I really have a very special guest and someone who I just consider, if I had one word to describe him, it would be fighter. And I see that in only the most positive way. Someone who has, fought for our country, fought for his principles, and fought for his clients. And in many cases, in most cases, and over the last 40 years, have been employees in government in Orange County. Let me introduce Nick Berardino.
Thank you.
Glad you're here, Nick. Now,
I'm glad to be here.
yeah, I mean, the foundation of Nick Berardino in my head is the voice of the Orange County Employees Association. You certainly represented the Anaheim Municipal Employees Association. And here you're a union leader. Here I'm a good Republican. But over the years, we've been on opposite sides of some stuff. But what I like about you the most is you really do fight for those principles that you have. And it's great to have someone who's, I won't necessarily say pure in all their positions, but working to get something done and accomplishing. Because I think what we have in common is we fight for our beliefs. We appreciate good government. Government should be run well. And we love our country. And I mean, a guy like you, I'd love you to share your early upbringings that culminate in you becoming a Marine during the Vietnam era.
Well, thanks. And first of all, thank you for being here. And I like the idea of being here. And I like the idea for people to see, particularly now, that, 40 years, I started representing Anaheim employees in 1973. And
yeah, I was a freshman in high school. So even an old guy like me was young once. So
yeah, there you go. But, today, what I've noticed is people on opposite sides, it seems like they can't even talk to each other, or they don't want to talk to each other.
Right.
And I think when I look back on, our relationship as well as, others, it wasn't really like that. I never felt it. We would put the gloves on and fight over issues because we had agendas, we had views that we really believed in.
Right.
And we weren't at all fearful about advancing them. But it was never like a personal kind of thing.
Yeah.
I never
you
felt
do
that.
think it's personal now? I think it's all performative now.
I don't know. I see a lot of, people who don't like people personally because they disagree.
Yeah.
Oh, I never sit down with that person, or I never eat with that person.
No, you're probably right in that. Thinking on the federal side, looks so vicious and aggressive today. And we certainly see that in the news lately, even though, nobody knows when we've recorded this thing, but there's stuff in the news every day, it seems, in terms of the Pringle philosophy forces people to take steps far beyond what was there in the past.
I think so. But I started out as an immigrant child. My parents both immigrated from Italy. Sicily my mother was from Sicily, my dad was from Bari. I didn't have anybody in my family, grandparents, great-grandparents, or parents that ever went to school. So when I say I was an immigrant kid that, came to this country from parents looking for a better life, both of my parents' homes had dirt floors. They came from dirt floor houses in the poorest part of Italy, and they came to this country. They couldn't speak the language. They didn't have any education. Barely, and so I really got a perspective about life, and life here in this country, which was, for an immigrant, it's a two-edged sword. The one edge is it's tough. If you don't speak the language, you have no education, it's tough to find work. It's tough to keep work. It's tough to find something that's really going to do something to catapult you into the middle class. And, as a kid, it's tough because you don't have everything that the other kids have, right? And it's embarrassing in a way. I remember it's embarrassing. And a lot of kids may have had this, but I can remember being poor and that my mom would take my jeans and she would iron these patches on them, because you just have patches on your jeans. But the smell from those patches was like fish, you know? So I'd walk around like a fish barrel all day, and you smell it, and other people are thinking, oh gosh, man, it's an embarrassing thing. The other side of that sword is though, and which I think gave me the great love for this country is it is a place that is free, and that if you take advantage of that and take advantage of those freedoms, um, it's a place where you can catapult yourself into the middle class and beyond.
Yeah.
And so, it's just it's such a wonderful, it's a wonderful country. But I grew up in a community that, was a community that didn't have very much. I mean, I went to a school called Washington High School, and the school was built, I think, in 1926
In Los Angeles.
in LA, right in South Central LA. The beauty of it, though, was when it rained, middle of the school would flood, so we got to cancel school. So we pray for rain. And so
But it never rains in Southern California. So
it never rains, but it did a number of times there. For me, even if it wasn't raining, I would pretend and tell my mother, who had a hard time speaking English, said, "Hey, they closed school today." That was one advantage. She said, you could do that. But it was an interesting course that we took that may be different. I mean, my parents spoke Italian to me until I was 5 years old. But when I turned 5, I mean, they were insistent that I speak English in the house. They wanted me to, look, you're
right.
here because we came here, and look, this is what we want. Now, it's kind of regrettable, because I can still speak Italian, but you know what? If I'm 45 minutes and I'm in Italy, I go to Italy. I'm there for 45 minutes. I've timed it a number of times. I'm back, but without it. So a poor kid, I wasn't always very, shall I say, judicious about the law as a kid. I mean, LAPD in the time I grew up in the 50s and the 60s were very intolerant of, any misbehavior. And they really didn't care about much other than you're going to pay for this. If you did this, you're going to pay the price for it.
Was that upbringing what motivated you to join the Marines?
It was. I think for me, it was given back, because I love this country. And my father, even though my father, and I still have this picture of him, now think of this. Here's a guy that comes from Italy, started out, his first job was working in the heat, scraping the streetcar tracks in downtown LA. That's what he did. Scrape crap off of. I mean, that's how he started. And he eventually, he was very handy and was handy, and he was handy making cabinets. And so he eventually got into the union, got a job as a cabinet maker. My father never called in sick. I never called in sick. And he worked and he built for himself and his family. We ultimately didn't end up with much, but he had 2 cars, which he really was proud of. And, he had a home. And, so he brought his family in, and that was his, goal. And I felt like, our country is, it's just, we travel and we can see that our country is not perfect in any way, but it sure as hell more perfect than any place else. And so when
I think the line somewhere is for a more perfect union, not we are a perfect union, therefore, no, do we always have a greater focus to attain better? right, when you're here. So
I think that's true.
we understand we are not all going to be, this is not the be all and end all, whatever period of time you're looking at. But I mean, during the Vietnam time, that was a challenging time, probably like today, in terms of a lot of factions, a lot of battling, a lot of political uncertainty.
I think there was a lot of political uncertainty, but in Vietnam, I have to tell you, it was, to me, people's ask, well, what about that experience? What was it like? Well, I was a Marine. Uh, I'm not very smart. And the Marine Corps figured that out fast. And they said, look, just give this guy a machine gun and tell him where to point it. If we lose him, so what? We can replace him pretty easily. So just, and that sounds hyperbolic, but that's kind of what they did. Um, and it was like, this guy, what's he going to do for us? So, when I got to Vietnam, you train and you train and you train, but you never have any idea of what it's going to be like when you get there. And the plane landed in Da Nang, and the doors opened, and there was this heat. And I got there April 6th, 1967. So I was there during 67 and 68, during the Tet Offensive and the siege of Khe Sanh. And so the heat hits you, and you think, my gosh, it's hot here. And then you start just sweating, and then there's dust everywhere and dirt everywhere. And the smells. I mean, you're smelling jet fuel and you're smelling all kinds of other things. And here you are in this environment. And I'll tell you what happened to me was I land, and I mean, what's going to happen? So you go to this place, and then they assigned where you're going to be. So I was sent to 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines, and it was immediate. Now, some of the Army, they give you 5 more days of training in country before they put you out. Not the Marine Corps. Hey, you have enough. You know how to pull the trigger? Good. Face that way. Okay, you're good. So we didn't. And so I'm out, get on this truck, and it goes down this route. In less than 24 hours, I was on my first patrol.
Mm.
And you really don't know. I mean, you really don't know anything, right? I mean, you've trained and you've seen it, but one thing you haven't seen is what it's really like when people are shooting at you, And so I was on my first patrol, and my friend, who I'd known all through boot camp, but he got there 2 weeks ahead of me. So he was already in the same company, same platoon, same squad, and he was walking point. And I saw, and being a machine gunner at that, you get to be in the middle of the squad, which is, 14 people, but it seems safer. It's not. And next thing I know, I heard this explosion. I saw him go up into the air, maybe 15 feet, 20 feet in the air. And then I saw his legs going in a different direction. And it was like instant, because I'm there less than 24 hours. And I thought, oh my God, I mean, this is real.
Yeah.
This is real.
Well,
And, I never experienced anything like that in my life, where I thought, I mean, I've never was as frightened and never have been as frightened. I mean, if they were giving out war awards for the most frightened person, it would have been me, because I was scared to death. And so it was brutal. I mean, it was unimaginable, up there during that time. And I just would wonder, am I ever going to get through it, and I would pray and pray. And the whole time I was there, again, lucky to have immigrant Italian parents and families, because being immigrant, strong Catholics, I mean, I would get medals, St. Christopher's and all these in bags full, from all my aunts, my uncles. Everybody is sending me medals, to try to get through it. And I think, faith is one thing.
Yeah.
But it was such a surreal experience.
So you were there for 2 years?
13 months.
13 months.
I spent a month in the hospital, and it's interesting, I get medevac, go to the hospital, right, to Da Nang. They go, well, they said, well, you got to medevac him to Japan. So I was in the hospital. And so I thought, so I leave, and they give me orders, and they say, you're a non-combatant now. No walking distances or long standing. So I thought, okay, this is going to be a reprieve, So I get back, carry my orders, non-combatant. I mean, I'm cocky, I'm thinking, okay, so you guys got my tent ready, or, what do you want me to do? You got any switchboard you want me to? I mean, I'm really cocky. And because I'm thinking I'm done, I mean, I'd done 6 months in the field. And so they said, no, you just go to this tent over here. And I said, okay, let's see, wait, orders. Guys go on without me, okay. Well, the next day they came and said, okay, get your stuff. So I'm thinking, oh, great. What air-conditioned hooch in the rear you put me in, They said, you're going to Special Landing Forces. I said, well, must be a mistake. I turned in orders, I'm profile 1, whatever it was, non-combatant now. They said, well, we don't have those orders. I said, what do you mean? I hand carried them. So they put me on Special Landing Forces, and I went to, which they call now Battalion Landing Team, I think, before I left. So I was in the Philippines for 18 days of, special training, and then kaboom, back into the field. And then Tet broke out, so I was there during Tet, and, that was just awful. And, of course, then the siege of Quezon, where Judge Carter was. Judge Carter was up on Quezon. I was at Route 9, kind of just below it. And so, but in it might have been 1989, or I forget. No, later, 1999. I had my lawyer. I said, "Look, I gotta find those. I gotta find all my medical records." And sure enough, we found them. And I found the orders that said non-combatant.
Yes.
And there was a big line crossed through it. So
a little too late for that to be operative,
right.
though. So, but isn't it kind of interesting that, the challenges of our life, the way your life flows, your parents, Italian immigrants, raised in LA, you're in the middle of the battles of Vietnam, then you come back and you move to Orange County. And, during that time, no one would have ever assumed that Orange County would be such a center for Southeast Asians and Vietnamese residing here.
Oh,
so for you to have that knowledge and understanding as you come and start working for county government, you started in what, 1974-ish? Three. And in the probation department, right? So you became a county employee. And what is your perception of Orange County back in 1974? I mean, a lot of people that was 50 years ago. This relatively rural, certainly defined suburban, but I would say even more of a rural county back in the early 70s.
Mm-hmm. It seemed very rural back then to me too. What had happened was I was living in LA, and they raised my rent in my apartment to $150 a month. So I got together with everybody, and I said, hey, in the apartment, I said, look, man, we're going to pay $150 a month, man. Let's all get together. Let's withhold the rent. Everybody agrees.
So there are elements of your troublemaking way back then.
Yeah. Everybody agreed to it. So I thought, okay, well, this is cool. But I learned a lot about organizing that helped me in my future life, which was when it came time to do it, I was the only one. So I got kicked out. Everybody else got to stay. I got kicked out. And a friend of mine said, go down to Orange County. He said, because it is a lot cheaper. It used to be much cheaper.
Right. Right.
And he's a lot cheaper. And I said, well, Orange County, isn't that like really far? And he goes, yeah, it's far. And I really thought, I thought I was moving, to Idaho. And I did. And so I come to Orange County and I got a job with the probation department. And then the union came around, and I had done some work in politics before that. I worked for a congressman in 1964 in LA. And so I had, some background in it. And so that was OCEA, and it was small then, had about, I don't know, 5,000 members maybe, I can't remember. And they wanted to do some other stuff. And I said, hey, I'll help. I'll do it. And that's how I kind of got into it. I kind of parlayed my experience that I had done, both working for a congressman named Charles Wilson, not the Texas, but the California Charles Wilson.
Yes.
And working for him, and I kind of parlayed it and started working for the union. But I didn't realize that in Orange County, people, and this is 73, 74, 75, in that area, they didn't like unions here. They really didn't like them. And I hadn't, I kind of was ignorant to that. But I learned.
Yeah.
I found out.
And soon you became the general manager.
We started running it,
which is a big deal. And I read somewhere that you were a part of 250 negotiations for contracts, 250 or more. That just seems crazy. And of so many of those issues coming before you on a regular basis. Usually people look at government union, worker union, and just look at that as a pay or retirement based discussion, what you're negotiating. But what are those negotiations?
Well,
and how have they changed, right?
Yeah, things have changed, and I a lot better too. Well, when I first came here, the county didn't even provide dental insurance. Now when employees sign up, were they for the city or whatever, the first thing they're going to ask is, what are the health benefits? What's dental? What's that? They didn't have dental,
right?
And there was what we thought, and what I thought was the most important thing was not always the wages, and wages are always important, but largely the market takes care of that, right? The market does a lot more at the bargaining table than people think. But we in the unions don't let anybody know that, because people wouldn't pay their dues. They're thinking, wait, the market drives this? Yeah, but what they don't do are certain work rules, safety issues. Big safety issues. When I first started and, working, if they were doing tunnel work, they go down into the tunnel, they would do the work. I got high premium pay because before, the safety issues were like non-existent. These guys that climb poles, and so, you'd fight for safety issues. And, to be fair, we didn't have a lot of holidays, and people think there are too many of them. That's something that's, now today is more important. I was able to do the first alternate work week, which was good because we got that ushered in because of the AQMD. As you recall, the AQMD came in what's that, late 80s?
Yeah.
I'm thinking. And so
where they, with a lot of governments, had them take every other Friday off.
Right.
Therefore, it modified your hourly on all the other days preceding that.
So you got 3 days off every other week.
Right.
And then it moved to, the 410s. And then, of course, the pensions.
Yeah.
And people so misunderstood the pension issue because this is a difficult issue to understand. And when you think about it, in Orange County, public employees didn't get Social Security. Now, like in LA County, they were getting their pensions and Social Security, and there was other places that did that. But in Orange County, that was it. Your pension, once you did it, your pension was your pension. And there was a lot of misunderstanding about that. People thinking, geez, these guys are getting rich on these pensions, where they weren't. Well, then we had the enhanced, pension program. But the pension programs were always very strong. And that was one of the things that I did was got very involved in making sure the right people got elected to the pension plans. Because I had learned again from being poor, coming from a working class family, that one, the pension plan, if you're a working stiff, you're not going to save a lot of money, man. You're trying to make it from day to day. And you're not going to have a lot to invest. You just won't because you're trying to make it. And so you need something so you don't go into poverty. So but it became a great political tool. And people would pound on it, pensions.
But in Orange County, though, all of those county workers were a part of the Orange County retirement system.
Yes,
they still are. So that's a separate system from CalPERS, the state and public employee retirement system. So
the 37 Act system, we call those.
Right. Meaning they were retirement systems established before PERS, I believe is how that worked.
That's
Therefore,
true.
1937 or something.
Mm-hmm.
But the question is, looking at those two retirement systems, Orange County retirement system seems a lot more conservative,
bond oriented,
right? So PERS looks for a huge stock portfolio or land portfolio, which faces much more fluctuation as opposed to what's known as OSERS, the Orange County retirement system.
Correct.
I mean, do you subscribe to the Orange County system over PERS?
I think the 37 Act, the thing I like about the 37 Act is more locally controlled.
Right. So there's a local pension board that oversees just that Orange County system, whereas the statewide system and the CalPERS or CalSTRS, the state teachers retirement systems, all run through a centralized retirement board up in Sacramento.
But I always felt that Orange County is known for its bond portfolio, very, very conservative. And I fought very hard. And one of the reasons why I wanted to get more influence there and elect more people is I think it needed more equity stuff. And, it has, taken on more equity in terms of its investments, but its investments are still very, very conservative. But think about it. Everybody was always screaming about, these pensions are going to go bankrupt. When the county went bankrupt, who bailed them out? It was a 37 Act, right? They said, look, we're going to give you a holiday for however, I think it was almost 2 years. You don't have to pay anything, And they say, well, then we had the 2008 downturn. Oh, the pension system is going to be bad. It's going to be bad. But what happened was, who bailed the county out? Didn't go broke, didn't go under. It was the pension system again that gave it to them. So there was a lot of misunderstanding. In fact, in those years where everything was going to go bad, the 37 Act, unlike PERS, 37 Act was actually not, it had enough cash flow from the contributions coming in from the employees. It made all its pension obligations just from cash flow. So there's so much misunderstanding, but some people made political careers out of attacking it and didn't know what they were talking about.
Yeah. No, that there is a battle, and I think one of the battles that sometimes people on the outside miss is there is a difference between what the state public employee retirement system does and what the local 37 Act counties do in terms of their separate retirement systems. And
their approach, their investments are different.
Right.
And their assumption rates are different. And, and so this is locally managed.
So under the Orange County employee retirement system, those employees are virtually all employees of the county, with the exception of management and sheriff deputies. Is that who are the members of the Orange County Employee Retirement System, or the Orange County Employees Association?
Oh, the Employees Association has everybody but basically everybody but the deputy sheriffs and a couple of other bargaining units. But they have about 13,500, 14,000 of the 18,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I left, we had 18,000 members total. That was 2015.
And that included other cities.
Right.
Irvine.
Oh, yeah. Huh. Yeah. Irvine. Yeah.
Is Irvine a member?
Yeah, they're a member.
Yes. And Anaheim.
Anaheim is always
Costa Mesa.
Costa Mesa.
And what other cities are a part of OCPA?
Let's see, Costa Mesa, Anaheim, Santa Ana, Huntington Beach have a unit there. Placentia, Orange, Yorba Linda. I mean,
wow. Do they all bargain for the same benefits? In other words, are they all seeking, do these cities try to be comparable to the county employees?
Yeah, they try
in terms of pay, in terms of benefits, or are there some outliers that look at different things?
Well, my vision was for organizing all the cities, and we organized a lot of them. I think we had 24 now. I mean, out of the 34, was if we were able to have the cities in coordination with the county and not coalition bargain, but coordinate bargaining, then we would have more control to set a wage standard. So we couldn't let anybody get under us, right? Because we had control of the actually wages in the other cities. So we could lift everything up. So that's why I read a lot of focus on cities.
Yeah.
But then, I left, say I retired and went to my next.
Yeah, no. And it's kind of, that's really an important part of what I wanted to have in the discussion today, and really to share your early on experience as a Marine, a veteran, as a fighter in Vietnam, and now as you retired from your position with the Orange County Employees Association. You're one of the leaders of the veterans community of Orange County, and I think it's a big deal. And I know when you sat on the Orange County Fair Board, your Heroes of Honor, Heroes Hall that you established. Why don't you mention that? So I don't ever like to reference the point of time, because I want all of these interviews to be consistent. But when people go to the fair, and some may be thinking about that now, they can stop off at the Heroes Hall at the Orange County Fairgrounds.
You can stop off at the Heroes Hall. Heroes Hall is a veterans museum. And I was on the fair board too. And, my falling on the fair board, Jerry Brown was a great friend of mine for a long time. And he was all upset at Schwarzenegger because Schwarzenegger was going to sell, or trying to sell, the property. Jerry was ballistic over it. I don't know. He just really hated that. He was the attorney general.
Right.
And so, I don't know what took place that last weekend before he was inaugurated. There's a number of stories, but whatever took place, the story is that, Jerry was getting inaugurated on January 5th. Some of the Schwarzenegger people tried to have a meeting on December 31st, New Year's Eve, at 8 o'clock to get around Jerry's thing. Of course, he found out about it before, stopped it. But I hosted Jerry's inauguration party called, and we served 5,000 people hot dogs on the step. It was the people's inauguration. That's what he wanted. And so when we were walking down towards it, I was talking to him about different things I felt we could do. I box, I started boxing at 4 and still do at 77. So I'm thinking I'm going to get on the boxing commission. I mean, there's an opening maybe, but no, I got stuck at the fairground because he was so upset at Schwarzenegger. And he said, I think you're the only, at an all-Republican board, I think you the only one I know in Orange County that can take on 7 Republicans at one time.
No, and I don't think people realize that primarily the county fairs, with the exception of Los Angeles, but primarily the county fairs are state defined agricultural districts, and therefore the governor appoints all the members to
They do.
the fair board. So
You were on it.
I was appointed to the fair board in on January 1st, 1999. And I know that I was leaving the legislature, and Governor Wilson was very generous to me, and he wanted me to serve on a commission. I wanted to serve. He wanted me to serve, and I wanted to serve on the bar association board because I don't. You don't have to be a lawyer. In fact, you can be a lawyer for some of those appointments. But my wife and kids uh, pressured me to pressure the governor's office to appoint me to the fair board. So now that you're coming home from Sacramento, you can be on the fair. And I did, and I loved it. But same thing, the governor has appointing authority until the next governor comes in. So it was on January 1st, I got sworn into the fair board. And then the next governor, and Gray Davis, came in that year. I think it was January 3rd or January 4th, the first Monday. So the same type of situation. But the fair board is awesome, appointed by the governor for each of these county area fairs. But while you were there, I mean, you made a big impact in, paying tribute to veterans through Heroes Hall and getting that Veterans Museum set up on the fairground property.
Yeah, that was my baby. Veterans had tried to get a museum here for 35 years, and it was really tough because property here is people don't want to spend the thing to do it. So I was very happy because that was one thing I wanted to do, it still is teaching people that freedom isn't free. That's the message of everything that we do. Everything that we do there is, look, this isn't free. And a lot of people die from our county. And, the hardest thing for me to do was, of course, it's beautiful and we have, great programs, but it's veterans talking to veterans, it's about, and the community, educating the community. This is what it takes to have freedom. Nobody likes it. And so, my hardest thing was about several years ago when I put up the final plaque for our desert, troops who had, started some Desert Storm. It took me 6 years to have the guts to put it up because every time I would get ready to do it, I would just get sick.
Yeah.
Because it's just, the loss of life is so important. And so for people to understand, that's what it costs.
Yeah. Well, and now as you are the leader in establishing an Orange County Veteran Cemetery. I know you have been battling that as you looked at locations in Irvine, and now we're excited about a location in Anaheim Hills in the city of Anaheim. So if you're on the 91 freeway and you see the big flag, that is a flag planted in the dirt to draw the community and support for a veteran cemetery or a community cemetery there with a veterans section that would be a part. So tell us about that struggle and, where you are in that process.
Well, I want to start with where we are. Is we're very, very close now to finishing the project. The struggle. You and I have been in politics a long time, and this is not a game for the faint of heart. I mean, it's a rough and tumble business, and you like it because you like to mix it up. You always liked it. You liked the challenge. You liked the strategy. You were always, a genius when it came to strategy. I mean, that was couldn't out strategize Curt Pringle, and people knew that. They liked it, and then they didn't like it, depending on what side you're on. So we're used to that. But I have never seen the dirty, vicious type of politics that we encountered in trying to build a cemetery in Irvine. What had happened was, El Toro closed. So there was a possibility then of getting a veteran cemetery, El Toro. So, everybody was excited about it, but it couldn't get off the ground. There were all kinds of problems. And they were running into all kinds of political problems. So years ago, I forget, Loretta Sanchez, who was then Congresswoman, called me and she said, "Look, Nick, you're coming out of retirement to help these guys get the cemetery." I said, "No, no, no." She said, "No, no." She said, "This thing is really, they're not political guys and they're struggling. These guys are getting messed over." She'd just come to visit. So I came, I visited their meeting, came out. She was standing there, called me in her office, said, "You got to do this." Well, I'm thinking, well, all right, building a veteran cemetery in Orange County, I can do this. This is within my skill set, which is limited, but I can do this. What I found was it was Larry Agron, and I'm, straight up about this. He was in some beef with some developer. And so he decides, well, I know how we could do this. We'll leverage the veteran cemetery. And we'll use the veteran cemetery as a way for me to get back at this developer. So he insists on putting the cemetery where the developer had first right of purchase. The problem was the piece of ground was knee deep in toxic stuff. It was so bad, the Navy told them, "We're not cleaning this up." And the Marines said, "Sorry, sorry for the mess, but we're moving on." So that thing was going to be and it was right next to housing where people were living. But he thought he had us as leverage. So the developer said, "Look, we'll give you another spot," which was called the Strawberry Fields, which is beautiful spots right by the 405 and 5 connector. Hundreds of thousands of cars would see it. It's just gorgeous. And we'll pay for the first phase. State was up on, everybody was for that, right? Except for Agron. So he gets an initiative through that would throw us off of that Strawberry Field property and force us onto this toxic dump. And of course, the state goes, "Well, that's too much money." They were like, "Well, we got to do all this toxic cleanup." They don't like to do that stuff. So we got kicked off of that property. So we thought, well, let's find, and it was an expensive election and we had to go through it. And I got in 6 months before or 5.5 months before the election, and there wasn't much we could do, but we lost that. So we said, okay, I came up with an idea working with the state. We'll have another property, be half in this golf course site, and the other half will be in the toxic dump. Okay.
In Irvine, you're still talking
Irvine.
about
It's still Irvine. It's a great park. Okay. There's a compromise. All we want to do is get buried. He challenged that and he got some, resolution. So at that point, we said, we're leaving and, we're not going to still be your little whipping boys. And we came to Anaheim and with open arms. I mean, everyone we talked to said, "You come here."
That's on county property. So
county property.
The supervisor there, Don Wagner, working with you.
Don Wagner, it's the whole board. But Wagner really took the lead on it. He really did. And he was, just devoted to doing that. But also the city, too.
Great.
Said, "Yeah, you guys can come here." Well, what does he do? Now we move and he challenges a bunch of stuff.
You're saying he back
Irvine
challenges.
Yeah. And he says, "You got to come back here." This because the Irvine city, we voted to have it here. Well, it's a state cemetery, man. I mean, you can't, so we were in just one fight after the other and then we had to go to court 3 times because he said, try the place is.
So is it going to be built in Anaheim?
Absolutely.
And when is the first phase going to be welcoming people?
I think, now remember the Anaheim project has half of it property goes to the state. The other half will be a public cemetery that has its own space for first responders, has its own space for allies, and there's going to be a pumping station there that we can use for fires. So we can pump water out of that site along with the Yorba Linda site. This whole area will be covered. So,
well, there needs to be a section. I've said we have to have an Anaheim contingency section within that Anaheim cemetery. So
Yeah, I know, that's okay with me.
exactly. I mean, I know all you're doing is getting it built, dude.
Exactly. I mean, this 8 or 9 year project, I can't remember. I mean, it's been the hardest thing I've ever done. But we expect, well, of course, we have to get a bill through the legislature to make the site CEQA exempt because it's been studied by CEQA a number of times.
Right.
And, but
For housing, I mean, originally it was
right.
proposed for housing or for that
Yeah.
matter, a county jail, but that's a long time ago. So.
Yeah. And this is a passive use.
Right.
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 So we've been to court 3 times over it, and the judge is like, look, I'm going, things. How many holes are you going to drill in this place? It's already past CEQA. But we've gotten a piece of legislation, AB 571 or 3, I don't remember. But we've gotten it all the way through. We're going to the Senate next week, and that will make the property exempt from any more of these harassment lawsuits. And once that's done, then the road is completely cleared. But we're in the process of building it out. In fact, as we speak, I just got called this morning that the state engineers are there. They're on site right now, doing all the other kinds of things.
And it's interesting to talk to me. Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about what you see in the change in the county and county government and board supervisors and things like that. But we got to talk about issues that are not strictly political, issues that are personal with you. So I appreciate you spending time because I think it's important for people to see, again, wherever they may be on a political spectrum or as we have been on different sides, at the end of the day, to see someone who has contributed so much to the county in their commitment to the county and the people here. There's very few people that I would say have done more than you. So I'm glad you were able to spend a little time with me today. So,
well, thank you. I'm right back with you.
Thank you, Nick.
Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.